So welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming, Ankit.
Where are we?
We're in my living room, and so Ankit is the founder of Tea with Strangers.
Uh-huh.
It's something that I've done for a while, but I guess we can talk about my experience a bit later.
Yeah.
Why don't you just give like a little intro, just for people who might not know what Tea with Stranger is?
Totally.
Just like a brief. What is it?
Yeah. Am I talking to the camera? Or am I talking to
I
you?
think you should talk to me.
Okay. Tea with Strangers is a community organization. I started about 5 years ago, and 6 years?
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah.
And we bring strangers together, small groups of strangers in cafes or parks, in groups of 5 or 6 people at a time, just to sit and talk for 2 or 3 hours about anything.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the whole point. And we have hosts all over the world who've been hosting these conversations, and like so far, like over like 50,000 people have had tea time since the organization started, and 50,000 people like coming in person, sitting at a table,
That's
and
crazy.
just talking.
Wow. That's very interesting. So I think I went to my first tea time in 2013.
Wow.
In San Francisco,
yeah.
when you right after college, and
Early days.
I think I did about 15 tea times as a guest.
Wow.
Until one day I showed up and the host didn't show up, and so I ended up leading that tea time. And I remember after I texted you saying like, "Hey."
I remember this. We texted about it, and I was like, "That's awesome." I mean, not awesome that the host didn't show up.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of experience that we hope to deliver, but but awesome that you were able to kind of like pick up where the host, in the host seat, because I think that that's a really, it's a unique seat, because tea time, it's not just people talking kind of in like a free for all. There is a little bit of facilitation.
Yeah, there's a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just so people realize, so basically it's a website, and you
it is a website.
And you pick your city, and then you have like tea time. So like let's say 2 p.m. at this cafe hosted by this guy, and like Saturday 11 a.m. at this cafe, and you just sign up and you show up, and there's 5 people that you don't know, and it's gonna last 2 hours. So that's basically just the gist.
Yeah.
So I did about 15 as a guest, and I think I did about like 20 as a host.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you did like
hundreds.
And I'm very curious, actually. What are some of the? So I actually have some. I got some insights that I want to share. But first, I was curious, like, without sort of giving you an indication of which kind of insights, like just like as a broad question, like did you get any? Do you have in mind some insights that you got in terms of like how you approach people, connection, like anything?
Yeah.
After meeting all of those people and having all of those moments.
So many. I'll just like rattle off a few, and then we can kind of go from there. But I would say it's not even exaggerating to say that all of these tea times that I've hosted have basically like fundamentally changed me.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure.
Like every way I interact with people has been in some way shaped or informed by, if not a single tea time, then just the collection of tea times. Because there's a lot that you learn when you're having these kinds of conversations repeatedly for years with so many people from so many different backgrounds, of so many different perspectives. And I think in a way you need to, as a host at least, but I also think as an attendee, I would say you probably know more about being an attendee than I do, because I've attended a few tea times, but in the grand scheme of things, my experience is as a host. I think you develop like this malleability. Like you just kind of like learn to maneuver in different social environments, and you never know what you're gonna get, but you need to be ready for it. And how do you show up in that way? How do you prepare for something you don't even know what exactly is gonna happen? I think the biggest insight for me is that kind of recognition that you can be yourself. Like I could be myself while showing up differently in front of many different people.
What do you mean? Oh.
Does that kind of make sense?
No. What do you
Okay. So I think hosting all of these conversations for me has taught me a lot about how I interact with other people, right? And I think in different environments, I need to show up differently.
Yeah, like at work, with your family. Yeah, for sure, yeah.
The way I'm talking to you right now, I think
here.
there's maybe even a part of me that is not even subconsciously showing up in a certain way because I'm talking to, I don't know, anybody in the world who might be watching this, or people that I know, people that I don't know, what assumptions you can make about somebody, or what assumptions you realize you can't make about somebody. All of that kind of informs the way that you engage with people, how much you lean in, how much you lean back, like whether you kind of operate in a kind of formal capacity. Do you shake hands? Do you hug them? Do you look them in the eye, or is that a little uncomfortable? Or, do you ask them a question about their day or an experience they're having in a way that's demonstrating that you really care? Or are you just kind of asking as a formality? Like, all of those things are things that you can be conscious of, and, you show up differently in different environments, but you're still who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I mean by you can always be different around different people, but still be who you are. And I think the thing is, when you do it in so many diverse scenarios, you start to kind of, in a way, collect so many data points that you can start noticing what is the common thread between who I am in all of these different environments that is keeping me, like, who is Ankit is my question. Yeah. And then in these many, many, many interactions, when I show up differently, a part of me does actually, in reflection, notice there is parts of that is the same. And the parts of it that are the same, in my mind, is my identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I definitely see that. I also feel that every interaction, whether tea time or no tea time, actually, like you kind of like calibrating yourself, and you're kind of like iterating over yourself, or like about like how you show up to people.
Yeah, I think something that's really interesting. I think maybe this is one of the reasons that I really love tea time specifically as like a social format, is I think it makes it easier to iterate on who you are.
Yeah, because you can schedule a lot of them.
Yeah, and not only can you schedule a lot of them, it's also the people who come don't know who you are last time.
Yeah.
And there's something very liberating about engaging with someone for an extended period of time, like 2 hours, or several someones, and they don't know who you are even 5 minutes before they get there. But you're committed to showing up for that period of time, and there's no commitment after you leave.
Yeah.
The only commitment is maybe say thank you. Like, thank you for coming, thank you for being here, thank you for being present, thank you for sharing. Maybe I'll see you later, but also maybe not. Because Tea with Strangers is not optimizing for you to build a long-term friendship. If it happens, it's fine.
Yeah, this is definitely like sometimes you have people who I think they try it for I would ask them why are you here, and they'll be like, I just moved, I want to meet new people and stuff. But my experience personally was that the tea time was more of like it's like a moment it's like a moment that we share, but then like maybe I stayed in touch with some people for like a few weeks or a few months, but it's more like I see it more as like an experience of connection within those 2 hours, and then sort of like you just move on basically.
I think what you just described to me, that's like, it's very pure. It's pure because there's almost an adulteration that happens to your social interactions when you're concerned, even subconsciously, about what someone might think of you. Or the story that you are telling. Yeah. Because if you're concerned with the story that you're telling, then in a way you are designing for a future interaction. Yeah. And in Tea with Strangers, you're not even designing. You're just being in your present interaction in a way that's like, I don't know, maybe it's a little poetic, it's almost artistic, it's almost idealistic in a way, because like, how many people do you meet? Maybe not you, but in general, how many people does one meet where there is so little expectation
Yeah.
and so much commitment to a period of time together.
That's true. Also, something I want to point out is that hosts in tea times, they have agency over how they want to host their tea times. So
Yeah.
for example, I remember, actually, I will tell this to everyone. I would give people this, so when I would host a tea time, I would be like, as a host, we can do whatever we want. I would say there's a spectrum. On one side, you have Ankit, who, when I showed up to his tea time, he was like, "Who are you and what are you about?" And I was like, "Okay," and then I felt like people, like everyone was like pouring like all of their
Feelings,
their soul in, and then you have people who like don't really have any frame, and the discussion sort of like just goes. I personally went for, I would give them little pieces of paper,
yeah,
and everyone would write questions like whatever they wanted. We would put them in the middle of the table, and if the discussion felt like it was
getting
going
dry
nowhere or whatever, we could like pull a.
Yeah, it's kind of like making a game out of it in a way, not to reduce it, but it's like creating like a prop.
Yeah, but my point was that, so my experience was that most of my tea times, like people, it was funny because like I wouldn't, I barely remembered those people's names.
Yeah.
Usually I didn't really know what they were doing. Like I didn't know anything about them. But within 2 hours, like people would talk about like pretty personal things, like their relationships with work, expectations of their parents. Like it was kind of like, me personally, my goal was to bring the group to like a sort of like group therapy type of feeling, where everyone's just like talking about their lives. So yeah, it is a special like people tend to have like, I feel like tea time is sort of fertile for like deep conversations.
Yeah, I agree. I think in general, deep conversations are scary, and I think in many ways, I think we as a society kind of talk about how we should be more vulnerable, how we should get more connected. But then when the opportunity kind of presents itself, it is, for some reason, a lot of us don't take that chance. Because you're risking something in saying like, I don't know, imagine if I just came up to you at the coffee shop and you were like, "Hey man, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm not doing so well. Life is really hard lately. I've been struggling in my relationship with, I don't know, my parents. How are you, by the way?" And then you're like, "I'm good." And I'm like, "Tell me about your relationship with your parents." And you're like, I actually have to go." You know what I mean? Like, it's very uncomfortable. And I think the potential for that discomfort, it scares a lot of people away from potentially digging deeper. And I don't think that the way I hyperbolized the awkwardness there. I think there's very graceful and adept ways of accomplishing that kind of depth. Or not accomplishing, but rather kind of like navigating that depth. But I think that even the thought of it is so terrifying to people that we're just kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to stay away. How are you? Good? I'm good too. Yo, good seeing you. We should catch up sometime. All right, see ya. Bye.
So I'm going to share one of the insights that Tea with Strangers gave me.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opposite to this. I also think that right now there's a lot of talks about vulnerability and talking, having deep discussions and stuff. And like for me, one of the main insights I got from Tea with Strangers is that I had all of those like really deep conversations with people, but what I realized is that it's not because I have a deep discussion with someone that like we have good chemistry or that I want to hang out with them. It just means we shared a lot, and they see my humanity and I see their humanity, but it doesn't mean like we're gonna like get along. And I feel and so I want to put back to a point, because I feel that nowadays a lot of people, they have a sort of they want to think about connection in like a strategical way. And so they think like, okay, if I'm vulnerable or if we have a deep discussion, therefore we will connect. And my insight was that no, it's not true. That it doesn't mean anything. Those are different things. Like it's
different things entirely. I think you're hitting on something super interesting, which I think of as the difference between a friend or like a professional contact versus just someone you connected with. And I think someone you connected with is obviously, it's not a very easy thing to say. It's not like a label you can give people, but it's a label that I give people. And that's, it's like language that I use in my own head, that like, and this might just be because I've had this with so many people where I've connected very deeply with them, and I might not even know what they do for a living. I might not know anything about their family, or maybe I know everything about their family, but I don't know anything about what they do on the weekends, or like the things you might learn in normal social interactions. But I know something very significant about the way that they relate to stress, or maybe the way they think about cultural expectation. And to me, the thing I'm being strategic about is not this relationship. The thing I'm being strategic about, for me, and I think that the goal is different from different people, but for me, I just want to feel connected to humanity.
Yeah.
Which sounds very cheesy, but I think it's in the world we live in right now, and I think this is especially true now, but has been true for many years, beyond just like when this was a cool thing to talk about. It's it is like hard, I think it's hard to be a person. As crazy as that sounds, as maybe it sounds a little like, what does that actually mean? It is just hard to be a person. Like, living in this world is not easy. It's not saying good things don't happen. It's just saying that like you have to do so much to survive and potentially thrive, and it can be lonely. And I think we have, our world is growing increasingly convenient, increasingly individualistic, increasingly efficient. And I think the more that kind of like norm takes over us, the less we need to like lean on each other, because we just have like systems and marketplaces and apps that kind of just like handle life for us. So like we don't need to feel very, or at least engaging with people is not something you need to do in order to move through life. And then what happens is you get very isolated. And there's like so many little moments in your day-to-day where maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously, you wonder if you're the only one having the experience that you're having, or if you're going crazy, if like everybody else's life is a certain way and yours is not. And for whatever reason, it could literally be like, I wonder if I'm the only one that drinks tap water, everyone else has filtered water.
This is not spring water.
I don't care. But like maybe one day that becomes like an insecurity, because like someone told you like, oh, San Francisco water is disgusting. Can't believe you would drink that. And then you're like, oh my God, am I someone who's doing like the wrong thing? It sounds so trivial, but those little moments, they add up. And those little moments can be exchanged for moments of connection, just by looking someone in the eye.
Yeah, just saying, hey, how are you?
Yeah, realizing that you're both here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, if two people are in the same space, we're both in a different world. We're not actually here. But when you put this away and then you look at you, it's like, oh, the experience that we are having is an experience where I'm just deconstructing a shared experience. That's exactly what's happening. We're sharing an experience.
So actually, what I find interesting is that, so it's like, people are getting like more isolated or whatever, and so as a response, some people are trying to find strategies to connect by like forcing like a deep conversation, or like they come up with like questions that are supposed to like make you connect faster or whatever. But on the other side, I feel like people I don't know, I always feel that when you hang out with your closest friends, your conversation a lot of them are trivial, especially if you see those friends like a lot. But when you meet someone new, you feel like you need to have like a grand conversation and talk about a lot of things, and like I feel like they don't necessarily appreciate the simplicity of just, oh, how are you, like, you know, how is it going, you know, just like the simplicity that we all, you know, we're all human, we all share, you know, we all want to have a nice day, you know, we all want to laugh.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like people are trying really hard, and they're forgetting the simple things.
Yeah.
But so in tea time it's like there's a frame, right? Like in tea time you go in kind of like for that reason.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very.
Yeah, I think we just kind of, without even realizing it, I think we kind of like went from talking about structured conversation at tea time to small moments of connection in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And I think, like, to me, there was a bridge, which was in both of them. You are looking for moments of connection. Tea time is this very dense dose of connection and connectedness. And then the small, like, just passing someone and saying, hi, how are you? How's your day going? Or, like, you know, like, this weather sucks. Like, those are little moments that I think are still substances.
So I guess I'm trying to add like a third like variable in the equation, which is what I can just call it like chemistry. So I would say that like earlier in my life I thought that, you know, and I mean like maybe that's true if you work like for the CIA or something, but like, you know, I thought that, you know there will be a path for me to connect, right? Like you know, if I want to connect with you, there's a certain few things I need to do and we're going to connect, right? But the more I meet people and the more I realize, like, I mean, at least for me, I feel like there's a spectrum. On one side, there's people that I've seen every day at work for years, and I don't even want to like walk around the block and get coffee with them. And there's people, I meet them, and literally within like 5 minutes, I feel like we were raised together. Like I feel like, I feel like a deep sense of like, oh, like we're the same people. Like it's insane. Yeah. And the more I grow up, I guess, the more I feel like chemistry has like so many variables, like you can't grasp it. And so there's some people that you click with, and some people you don't click with. Yeah. And the best thing you can do is you just like meet more people, I guess. Yeah. But I find that it's not productive to try to like force it. Like I think a lot of people are trying to force it. You know what I mean? Like so, and I think that the reason is that because they have a limited pool of people that they don't meet enough people, so they try to like they're like, you know, I'm gonna connect deep, so let me read some questions about like, you know, and they always ask the same question like, oh, like what has been on your mind, and, you know, and they try to like come to you with like open-ended questions and so my lesson from tea time was that I can have a very deep discussion with someone and I can really open and they can open, but that's like just one variable out of like 1 billion of variable in the, you know, like the chemistry. What I mean by chemistry is like who you want to hang out with, like after your you know, like on Friday night, like who do you want to chill with, like who do you want to just like go like have a drink or just chill at your house, and like, you know, who do you, and some of those people you're gonna have great conversations with, you know. It might happen, and some maybe not. Some maybe are very different from you and they're not interested in the same things. Yeah. But
you know, I think the thing that's standing out to me when you talk about being strategic is whenever you're like reading a list of questions, you're like, oh, you know, this is a good way to dive deep because, you know, some article told you so.
This is like those games and stuff. Like sometimes I go to dinners and people hand cards and I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I just feel like the missing ingredient there is curiosity. And I think people oftentimes will mistake a question for curiosity.
That's a good one.
Like, if I ask you, I don't know, what kind of plant this is, or what color your wall is.
I don't know.
But also, like, I don't care.
Yeah. Just
like
just
I'm looking.
I'm
just like filling time. And the thing is, you can fill time because you want to be connected to somebody, or you can fill time because literally you just don't know what the fuck else to do. And I think in the latter case, it feels like there's nothing. It's a very hollow question, and I think there is, and it's hard to manufacture. You can't fake being interested in somebody. but there's something very almost like necessary about saying like, hey, I actually want to know.
Yes, like it is what you're saying genuine? Like, are you saying it? Is it genuine or is it just? And actually, that makes me think of it brings another dimension. In my mind, it's also a dimension of like transaction. So I find some people, so people who tend to think strategically, I feel like you're in a mindset where you think like, I have some information and you have some information, and if we exchange enough, at some point we're gonna reach a deal where like we're gonna, it's like, let me tell you about me and you tell, and people feel like they need to, it's like a transaction. And what I find in my experiences also outside of tea time, I'm curious what you think is, I feel that for me, like connecting with someone is like dancing. So it's like, so the type of discussion will be the type of music. Okay, so you can talk about anything, you can chit chat, you can talk about deep things. It doesn't matter. What's important is that you're in rhythm. That you're in rhythm with the person and with the moment. Because some moments they call for, sometimes you're with, like, have really good friends. Most of the time we talk about dumb shit. But sometimes we're sitting, it's late, and then we dive into like a 5-hour really long discussion, and like it's like, oh fuck, it's 4 a.m. But and so each moment has its music in a way. But I find that sometimes people, they're so anxious about connecting that they don't just go with the flow. They try to. It's
like they're dancing to a different song. Or they're dancing to the same song, just like at a different timestamp. Are we still live?
Yeah. Just making sure because I
heard
the noise.
It's almost like imagine we're both dancing to a song on our headphones, and you press play 2 seconds after me.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, we're still dancing to the same song, but we might trip over each other.
We might, yeah.
Because you're just dancing to a slightly different beat. And I think you could almost think of conversations as, are you there? Or are you thinking about what you're going to get tomorrow?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about what you're going to say in 10 seconds? Are you thinking about how this person might be useful to you 1 to 12 months from now? Or are you just saying like, we're here?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time we will shortchange the potential of a conversation because our mindset is thinking in a short-term fashion. And a long-term fashion, you're not actually wondering what you can get from someone.
Yeah.
Instead, you're just wondering, like, what is it that we both share? What is it that we are both seeing or experiencing or witnessing together? What can we learn from each other? There's almost like a more expansive way of thinking of your interaction with somebody if you're not operating on a time horizon.
Yeah. Also, I feel like if you make too many assumptions, or like if you have like a lot of expectations or like assumptions about the person, it kind of like it kind of like limits it limits where the conversation can go, because you think, oh, this person is like this.
Yeah, if you deviate too far, then suddenly the worthwhileness, like how worthwhile the conversation is, suddenly starts coming into question. But if, like, for example, if you and I are talking about the color of the wall, and I'm thinking, why the fuck are we talking about the color of the wall? It's such a waste of my time. Then suddenly I might be like, why, this.
But you should say, actually, sometimes my friends, they tell me I'm a bit, because sometimes, like, if we talk about something I don't want to talk, I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about this? Let's change the topic.
Well, I think that the difference between not wanting to talk about something because it's not useful and not wanting to talk about something because it's not interesting.
Yeah.
And you can not be interested in something and not necessarily dismiss the person, because you've separated your interpretation of a topic from the person. I think if you are too concerned with, like, the topic being, if you're interpreting the topic as the person, then I think you'll also kind of like limit your, I don't know, the frame through which you're seeing somebody. It's like looking at just someone's right cheekbone. It's like,
you're saying, like, for example, if I'm like you and Kate, every time I talk to you, we talk about meeting people. Like,
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, very meta. It's there are people in my life who think that the only thing there is to talk to me about is like tea or conversations with strangers. And I'm like, and I know we're talking about, you know, talking to people and whatnot right now. It's relevant to this topic, but like, you know, if you wanted to talk to me about photography, if you wanted to talk to me about like the air outside, if you wanted to talk to me about like a snail you saw on the sidewalk, like those are all interesting to me.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about like my shtick. We don't need to talk about like the one thing people know me for. Like there's a lot of interesting things to explore, but if I am only interesting to you for the reason of that Tea with Strangers thing, that experience I have, then you are probably, at least I think, you're probably missing out on a lot of the experience of interacting with me. And I think that's true for everybody. I don't think it's, you know, it's not just a me thing. Yeah.
What you're telling me makes me think about. I find that sometimes, you know, we judge people. So, you know, like you meet someone, and you know, maybe you judge them because of the career choice they make or the lifestyle they're living, or you judge them, you know. But the problem is, like, a lot of times I find is that even if you want to keep that judgment for yourself, usually it's sort of like
you project it.
You project it.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as you project it, the person feels it, and basically, like you know, it's like if when you meet someone, you're like at the center, and there's doors everywhere, and the discussions can go like so many directions. But once you start projecting judgment, a lot of doors are closing because the person, they don't want to reveal, you know, like if they feel judged, they're not going to talk more. And then I feel like you basically prevent yourself from like connecting with people at levels that you could not have foresee, you know, because you think, oh yeah, this person, whatever, you know, they're wasting their lives. And so then, you know, you're going to have a very shallow interaction.
Yeah.
While, you know, if you had kept an open mind, you could have connected here, and there, but like you didn't.
You didn't even know these things were possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think of this exact thing that you're talking about as buckets. You put someone in a bucket.
Yeah.
If you see someone who works in this industry, they're in the bucket of people that work in that industry. Oh, they're wearing this kind of clothing. Oh, they must be like all the people who wear that kind of clothing. Yeah. Oh, they have this accent. They must be like everyone else I know who has that accent. Or every person I saw on TV that has that accent. Or the person that I read a headline about who probably has that accent. And now I'm using that headline to pretty much be my lens into a whole part of the world. Which, if you think about it, like I use the headline thing because that is very much how so many of us form our perspectives. Yeah. We see these like very, very shallow cuts of information about the world around us. And it might be digestible, it might be catchy, maybe is like partially accurate, but maybe also, maybe not at all. Or maybe fully accurate, but there's definitely other things that are missing from the picture because you're seeing such a small slit. Yeah. And that small slit of the you know the view that you have is limiting you from recognizing that a person doesn't necessarily belong in just that bucket. Yeah. Maybe that's one bucket they belong in, but maybe they also belong in like 20 other buckets. Or maybe they don't even. Maybe you misread them entirely, and maybe the bucket you put them in is entirely inaccurate.
It's funny. It made me think. A while ago, I saw this ad by like, I don't even know. Like it was some random Norwegian, like some random like company. Like I think it was a Norwegian company, or I don't know. And basically, they bring people into a room, and so you have some people who look like, like I don't know. People. You have people with tattoos, people in suits, young people. Like you have all types of people, right? Yeah. Like people like truck drivers, like secretary, like all like a very wide spectrum of people. And then the questions are, and then there's someone in the middle, and they're like, okay, who was the funny one in elementary school? And then it brings like. Who was like this, and then it formed groups with like the groups are like so not uniform, right? You have like a huge fat guy, a small guy, like and it's like and it shows that you can connect with people on so many different layers that it's not always like what it seemed.
I think that message is literally true of every single person that you ever pass by.
Yeah.
There is something, some layer that exists where you might end up high-fiving with someone, or you might end up looking at them like, oh my God, I can't believe that, whatever it might be. That always exists. And it's just a matter of like, depending on the way that you are showing up in the world, depending on your degree of curiosity, your perspective on time. Are you like nervous about today, or are you thinking abundantly about life? Which, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into how you might show up in that way. But like those things determine, I think, the expansiveness with which you consider another person.
Yeah. I definitely sometimes catch myself, and sometimes I'm sure I don't, like judging. Like if I see like sometimes I see a stereotypical person and I judge them, and sometimes I catch myself. But yeah, I do believe that there is a path to connect to anyone, and for me, I think I judge. Like even if I meet someone and for some reason like we didn't connect at that moment, like I still believe that, you know, I could have done something differently, or like things could have happened like slightly differently, or like maybe in the future, you know, if I still believe there's a path. It's just that at this point in time I wasn't able to go there.
And the thing is, if you were stressed about the relationship today, then that might feel like a failure.
Yeah.
But if you have a long-term mentality on like what a relationship or a person could bring, or you know, could bring into your life or whatnot, then there's a little more, I guess, like green pasture in the next time you meet that person.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you know, that first interaction, that went the way it went. But this next interaction is a new thing entirely.
Yeah. So I would say that my personal mindset on like how I judge my interaction is not so much like what happened. And actually, I remember I think it's the first day I met you. We met at you may not remember. We met at Under 20 Summit, and you had a talk.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I missed it. Like I didn't see it on the schedule. And I asked.
There's a talk about listening.
And
that's funny.
And I asked you. I said, I was like, yeah. So like, did you? And this is funny because this is a question that sometimes now people ask me. So like, did you become friends with a lot of people? And you made a point about like ephemerality. I don't know why I mentioned that, but the point I wanted to make was that the way I judge my interaction is not like what happened, you know, did I become friends, did we stay in touch, whatever. It's really just, was I true to myself? Like, how true was I to myself, and was I able to express myself truly? Like, you know, if I want to talk to someone, then I'm gonna do it, and then was I able to do, you know, it's kind of like if you, I don't know, like you I don't know, like let's say you play soccer and you want to shoot the ball at the top right corner. It's like, did you shoot, and were you able to do that? And then what happens, you know, it's outside, because the truth is what happens is outside of your control. Like you
exactly, what is in your control is that you shot.
And that you show up in the way you want to show up.
Exactly.
Right, like without like anxiety or without, you know, you can work on that, but you can't work on people's reaction to you.
Absolutely. I think similar to like the evaluation of like, did I show up the way in a way that's true to me? I think something that I often do is after an interaction, I'll literally have the thought of, that was an awesome interaction. And not even like, are we staying in touch, or you know, what comes next? It's like, that was a really fun conversation, or a really connected moment, or like what a spontaneous or unexpected like happening or instance. I think like those are the ways that like for me I like to assess the success of a social interaction. Is that, you know, there's like, I think like all of us know what it feels like when you meet somebody and you're like, that was great.
It was good.
And not like, I want to be friends with them in 10 years. Yeah. That's not a feeling that you have.
They have this good job, maybe they can help me.
Yeah, no, that is a very different feeling. You're not, the feeling of they have a good job, maybe they can refer me to whatever, like that's more a feeling of yes, which is a very different feeling from
yeah.
You know, like I know that's weird, but like it's like there's something. It's like literally you feel like your soul filling up in a way because you're like, oh my goodness, this thing that I could have never planned for just happened. In a way, you're kind of optimizing for a certain like degree of serendipity. Yeah. You can't necessarily plan for it, but what you can do is maximize your like receptivity to the potential of a serendipitous moment, which I think requires like, you know, literally or figuratively your eyes to be wide open. Like if your eyes are dilated, you're looking at the world and like it's all coming in and you're like, whoa. I think the same thing is true when you interact with a person. You can interact with a person in a way that is eyes wide open.
Yeah, interesting. So actually what you said made me think of two things. They're not very connected. The first one is I think that when you're young, sometimes you know, we all have like a, maybe it comes from like a pressure to fit in or whatever, but you know, we want to have the right kind of friends, and you know, we want to, you know, some
yeah.
You know, and there's this French rapper in one of his latest songs, he says it's better to have serious, well, it's in French, it sounds better in French, but he says it's better to have serious friends than friends who are serious.
It's better to have serious friends than it is to have friends that are serious.
Because
that's good. I like that line.
A lot of people are trying to like almost like climb the social ladder by making like the right connections.
Yeah.
And they may dismiss, you know, actually like true friendships that could, you know, last their lifetime and could really enrich them for, you know, like little calculations. And the other thing what you said made me think about is that. So I had actually a turning point a few years ago where I realized that when I had random interactions, like when I had good random interactions, whether like, you know, in line or in an Uber or whatever, like even if it's just for 2 minutes, if at the end of the interaction I'm smiling and I'm just like happier for like, you know, 1 hour or something, yeah. and I feel like, as you said, like connected, then, you know, why not? Like literally, if you have like those little moments, I literally, you know, you can literally feel like Tarzan, like going from like lines to line. What do you say in English?
Vines.
Vines to vines, you know, and I feel like, yeah, I feel like, you know, there's just all of those little moments where you can just like, you know,
I love
share
that.
a little moment, and it's great, and I feel like a lot of people they don't.
I think what it does is, I think of it as literally raising the baseline quality of your life.
Yeah.
Like literally, like. Everything
so
in your life feels more approachable, feels more lighthearted, feels less anxiety-inducing. You don't feel like the world's about to end all the time when you walk away from small social interactions smiling. It's like oftentimes, even at work, I'll be in meetings with people that like usually they have like very strong agendas. Where it's like, you know, in this meeting we need to accomplish X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, okay, cool. But if we accomplish X, Y, and Z quickly, and like say the meeting's scheduled for like 30 minutes and we finish X, Y, and Z in 20 minutes, then we have 10 minutes to say like, by the way,
yeah, what's up?
How's it going? Like, you know, now that we're done with this work stuff, like we have 10 more minutes, and I know we're at work, but like, you know,
you try to do tea time with the people in
it's
the meetings.
Like little moments, yeah.
We have 10 minutes. I brought some tea.
It's kind of, but I think it's like a mental space. It's like it's for me, it makes me feel at the end of cool. For me, it makes me feel like at the end of even something that might otherwise be very transactional, like a work meeting, that there was something bigger that came out of it. And that something bigger was just like the acknowledgement of a person. Which to me is like a very, you know, substantive. It's important. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah. Like, you mean...
like it's not just, the meeting is not about the agenda. It's about the agenda, and then it's also about the person that you got to navigate that agenda with.
Yeah, I think if you make your encounters, well, I mean, I guess at work maybe it's slightly different because you're meeting for a very specific purpose. But yeah, I think that if you if you make the priority the agenda is definitely not as rich as if you make the priority the person, and you try to, like, the person becomes the priority instead of like whatever ideas you have in mind.
Yeah. It's almost, I think of like, if you think about the person first, everything that is in front of you, you're doing together.
Yeah,
you're not.
It's a really
you're not
moment.
dealing with somebody. You're getting to be with somebody. It's like a slight tweak, but it kind of changes the way you feel about the interaction.
Interesting. Do you still do tea times?
I do, less frequently than in the past. I host maybe once every 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's happening? I saw last time you did the video, like you said, like.
Oh yeah.
You're not.
There was a recent Tea with Strangers, like tea time, where we had an online digital media outlet that wanted to do a little story about Tea with Strangers. So
weren't you? I'm talking about like is tea time still, like, is it going to continue? Like, weren't you looking for someone to like?
Yeah.
To, like,
oh yeah. No, totally.
To take over? Like,
so,
I don't know. Like.
Yeah, tea time is still happening.
Okay.
But I'm in the process of exploring what the future of the organization might look like under different leadership. I've been running it for the last 6 years, and I think it's an interesting time where I feel like I've like done a lot to get the organization to where it is, and right now, like, my like personal interests and my like life priorities are
they have evolved.
Yeah, they've evolved a little bit. I think I'm less interested at the moment in running an organization as my like way of feeling connected in the world, because Tea with Strangers, like, it doesn't make any money, and it's not like an enterprising opportunity. It's not like something where I'm like, oh, if I keep building Tea with Strangers, maybe I'll like
sell tea.
Yeah, no, I don't want Tea with Strangers to like do anything besides inspire human connection. That's like, that's the reason it exists. So I'm not trying to like milk Tea with Strangers.
Yeah.
But what I do want is I want Tea with Strangers to continue to create the experience that it does for people in the world. And I think that I've over the last few years I've understood enough about the organization where I could help someone who wants to lead it operationally and kind of like bring it into whatever it becomes in like 2020 forward. It's kind of scary for me. I'm like figuring it out right now.
Did you find someone, or are you like in the process?
I'm still in the process of I'm like interviewing some people, and also I think together there's a few people who I think might be really good fits for like being a part of the team that runs Tea with Strangers. And I think right now we're trying to figure out like how does everyone work together, and like maybe what are the missing puzzle pieces that we might need to fill in for the team to feel like well-rounded and collectively capable of like not only managing Tea with Strangers but like helping it thrive. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
More to come in that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's in progress. So it's my hope is that by the beginning of 2020 that the organization will kind of primarily be under the direction of a new team, and that I'll be kind of there as like a advisor to support them, because obviously I've for the most part run Tea with Strangers almost single-handedly. There's people who've been really helpful at different junctures in the organization, and so much of what Tea with Strangers has become like literally could not have been made possible without like a very, very like committed community of people. But like behind the scenes, a lot of the operational work has always kind of historically been done by me, and that my capacity for that is kind of just dwindling, which I think has made it so that there are parts of the organization that could be running more smoothly just like on an operational front, bringing hosts on as like at a healthy rate. We have so many host applications, and I just don't have the time to process them all and interview people and vet them, bring them into the community, hosting gatherings for hosts to get together, to learn with one another, to connect with each other, manage the marketing for the organization to make sure that people are always kind of like coming to tea time and discovering it. Like there's a lot that the organization needs that is very difficult for me to do between 7 and 9 p.m. Every day of the week.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Very interesting. Is there? I don't know. I think this was nice. I don't know if you have any other insights or any other thoughts you wanted to share, but
I think one thing I really want to harp on is, to me, this feeling that we've been talking about, this feeling of like curiosity or like expansiveness and like long-term mindedness is something that it's not something that you can fake. You can't manufacture curiosity. You kind of have to feel it. It's almost, you know how some people say like the more you try to meditate, the harder it is to meditate. Like if you're trying to like, why isn't this working? Let me try harder. Like that's not how you enter that moment of meditation. And I'm not a meditation pro, but I use this analogy as like a function of like, I can't like think, be curious, and then I become curious. It's almost like I need to like think about ways that I can look at somebody and feel a slightly different lens being applied to my perspective. And that's not an effort thing. That's a perspective thing.
It's interesting. Like for me, I feel like curiosity, I definitely agree, but I feel like it almost comes after like expression, because I feel like if you don't express yourself, then you don't even, then it doesn't even start. Like the counter is zero. Like you don't even start with that. And I feel like sometimes in social settings with someone, or even at a tea time, like you want to say something and you don't. So basically, you're not being true to yourself, and so you don't even give yourself the opportunity to be at a place where you can be curious because you just don't engage.
Totally. But I think what you're talking about, what I hear, tell me if I'm misunderstanding, is the curiosity is there. It's just buried. There might be a few things on top of the curiosity that you might need to peel back. But there is this curiosity waiting to come out. Like if you showed up at a tea time, you opted into that. Even if you're having like a bad day, even if you're feeling a little like tight or a little more nervous or a little more shy or whatever it is, like the fact that you even came meant that like you had your curiosity at least got you there.
It's like everyone has like a little like fire inside, but some people it's like the how do you call the thing on the lamp? You know, the
shade.
Yeah, the shade is like too thick, and so you don't see anything.
Yeah, and you just kind of like gotta peel back those layers in a way, and then eventually that curiosity gets some breathing room, and it gets to show up.
That's so interesting. Like it makes me so it just makes me think that like maybe because people are not able to express their curiosity like genuinely, then maybe they look for like mechanical ways of doing it.
It's almost like people who drink Diet Coke. It's like, I still want Coke. But I just want it without the sugar, so you just have this fake sugar. Or like, or like, I want to lose weight. So what if for the next 2 weeks I do this thing that's entirely unnatural and hopefully I'll lose a bunch of weight? It's like that's. I feel like those are some of the more. It's like a artificial approach to curiosity, and sometimes that helps because it gives you a little bit of the kick in the pants you need to like now be like, maybe I have like a taste of what fake curiosity feels like. Maybe the real stuff is even better. If like you taste Diet Coke and then you're like, wait, I wonder what real Coke tastes like, and then you have it and you're like, okay. Like that's what real sugar is, as opposed to.
And then it's completely different. Yeah.
You know, what do you call it? Aspartame.
Yeah, whatever it is. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Man, this was great. Thank
This
you
was
so
good.
much.
I
think
this is my first time on Facebook Live. I don't even know if anyone's watching this.
You said you were going to say that at the beginning. No, you said it.
Well, yeah, no, I wanted to say it at the beginning to reduce my awkwardness. But yeah, no, I think this was a fun conversation, and I also wonder. I'm curious to know if like other people think about this. Like I know you think about it.
Yeah. That's,
and I think about it. I think people think about it.
I think so. Yeah, it has to be on people's mind because
everyone has to interact with people.
And everyone wants like. I feel like at the end of the day, we all just want to, like we just want to know like everything's gonna be okay.
Exactly. That's all you want in the whole world. And I think like a lot of the time, like we come up with 1,000 ways to take very long circuitous routes to that feeling.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe one day if I have a lot of money, then I'll feel connected. Or if I live in this house, then I can host people for dinner and then they'll like me.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if I go to this place where I dress a certain way and then I talk a certain way and I learn certain cultural subjects, so I can talk about them to these people, maybe then they'll like me or like whatever it is.
It's funny. It's like if like people like it's like if you don't really have a strong sense of self-worth, so you think that like by adding, people are going to be attracted.
When in fact you just need to get rid of it all.
Yeah, but I feel like the truth is that the strongest connection is when there is nothing. It's like at the lowest.
That's
level.
very interesting. Maybe we can talk about that in the next
one.
Facebook Live.
The next one.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ankit.
Cool.
Boom.
Try again. There you go. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for watching if you even made it this far.
Thank you.